We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph in Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 17a. This daf is sponsored by David Grossman. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amud or a daf, see the description box below, and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amud, the Gemara was discussing the machlokas in the Mishnah between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda in terms of whether the great Sanhedrin had 71 judges or if it had 70 judges. And the Rabbanan say the way that we know that it has 71 judges is the pasuk says V'siyatzu sham imach, that they're going to stand there with you. And we understand that to mean imach v'at bahadayu. We understand that to mean with you and you together with them. So there were 70 elders plus Moshe Rabbeinu. That's a total of 71. And what does Rabbi Yehuda respond to that? Rabbi Yehuda responds to that, imach mishum shechina. When it says imach, that is because of the shechina. Rashi explains imach mishum shechina, imach yamdu michutz la'oel. When it says that they stand with you, it really just means to say they stand with you outside of the oel moed. V'lo yavo la'oel, they shouldn't come to the oel mishum shechina, because they shouldn't come to the area where the shechina is. It doesn't mean that you count Moshe Rabbeinu as a judge, that it's a total of 71. It's just saying where they should stand. Rashi gives another explanation, Lashon Acher, another explanation, Misham Shechina Shetishra Shechina Aleim, you should stand with them so that the Shechina rests upon them. Hutzruchu Lios Moshe Imoin. That's why Moshe had to be with them, Kedechsiv Yatzalti Min Haruach Asher Alecha, as it says in the pasuk. And the Gemara continues, V'Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan, they respond that Omar Kra, the pasuk says, V'nasu itach b'maso. It says again that they're going to be with you. And so from that pasuk we see itach v'at bahadayo. Again, it's you included with them. It means to say again a total of 71 judges. For Rabbi Yehuda, what does he do with that pasuk? Itach b'dom and lach. Itach means that they have to be similar to you. Rashi says b'dom and lach miyuchasin, of good lineage, u'menukan mimum, not having any blemishes. That's what the pasuk means, that these judges of the great Sanhedrin have to be similar to Moshe Rabbeinu in that regard. V'Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan, how did they understand this idea of dom and lach? They learned that from a different pasuk. The pasuk says me v'hakel me'olecha. It says that you're going to have other courts, so that it shouldn't be so much upon Moshe Rabbeinu. V'nasu itach, together with you they'll carry the burden of the people. So nafka, we learned that out from over there, that these smaller Sanhedrins, they also have to be dom and lach, similar to you. The Alpha Sanhedrin Gedola mi Sanhedrin Katan, and we learn out the great Sanhedrin from the smaller Sanhedrins. And Rashi explains, Rabbanan nafkalu bedom and lach. The Rabbanan learn out this idea that the judges should be similar to you. Mi v'nasu itach, the Sanhedros Katanos, from the pasuk of v'nasu itach, which is talking about the smaller Sanhedrins. Shenemru b'Yisro, that are mentioned in Yisro. V'yalfa Gedola mi Katana. We learn the great Sanhedrin from the smaller Sanhedrins. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Vayisharu shnei anoshim b'machane. The pasuk says that 2 people remained in the camp. This is referring to the incident in which 72 people were selected to be from the 70 judges, but 2 ended up being excluded, as we're about to explain. Yesh omrim, some say bekalfe nishtairu, that those 2 remained in the box when they drew lots in terms of who would be part of this Sanhedrin. Shabeshosh amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMoshe, because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Esvali shivim ish miziknei Yisrael, he said, gather for me 70 men from the elders of Israel. Again, these would be these members of the Sanhedrin. The total would be 70. Amar Moshe said, Keitzad esa, what should I do? Ever shisha mikol shevet v'shevet, if I choose 6 from every tribe, nimtzu shnayim yisayim, I'm going to have 2 extra. It's not going to be 70, it's going to be 72. Ever chamisha mikol shevet v'shevet, if I choose 5 from every tribe, nimtzu asara chasayim, then I'm going to be 10 short. So ever shisha mishevet zeh v'chamisha mishevet zeh, so let's say I take 6 from this shevet, but 5 from that shevet, hareini matil kina ben hashvatam, then there'll be jealousy between the tribes. So what did he do? Bira shisha, he chose 6 from every shevet, and so he had a total of 72. Vehevi shivim ushnayim piskin al piskin, and he brought 72 pieces of paper. Al shivim kasav zaken, and on 70 of them he wrote the word zaken, an elder. Ushnayim hiniach cholken, 2 of them were blank. And bolalon, he mixed them up. V'nasan v'kalfi, put them in the box. Amar Lemi said to them, Bo v'utalu piskechem, come each of you and draw your lots. Kol misha Allah biyado zaken, anybody who picks a paper that says zaken, Amar kvar kidshach shamayim. So he said, the Shamayim in heaven, you've already been sanctified. And Misha Allah biyadu chalak, whoever took a blank piece, Amar, he said, Hamakom lo chafetz bach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't desire you to be part of the Sanhedrin. Anima esalach, what can I do for you? And Rashi explains, Misha Allah biyadu chalak, whoever took a slip of paper that was blank, Ushnayim me'osan shivim, and 2 from the 70, Shahalchu litol, who went to take, Allah biyadu chalak, they actually took the blank slips of paper. V'nishtayru shnei piskin shayu ksuvin bekalfi, and they were actually 2 slips of paper that remained in the box that it was written on them, the word zaken, shayu shel eldad u'meidad, that would have belonged to Eldad and Meidad, shelo halchu litol, but they didn't go and take, shenisyayiru shelo yalu biyad and chalak, because they were afraid that they shouldn't take a blank sheet of paper, and that's what the Gemara means to say, that those slips of paper remained inside the box. And the Gemara continues, Kayotze badavar ata omer. Similarly, we find as follows. The pasuk says, "V'lakachta chameshes shkolim lagalgolos." It says you're going to take 5 shekel per every person. This is talking about by the redemption of the firstborns. Some of the firstborn were redeemed through a Levi, and some had to pay 5 shkolim. And so the Gemara says, Amar Moshe. Moshe said, "Keitzad eso lehen Yisrael." What should I do for Klal Yisrael? Im omer lo tein li pidyon chavitzei. If I'm going to say you have to give you the money to redeem yourself and go, Yomar li. So he'll say to me, Kvar Dani ben Levi, I'm one of the firstborn that's already been redeemed by a Levi. So Ma'asa, so what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Hevi Esrim Ushnayim Alpayim Piskin, he brought 22,000 slips of paper. V'chasav Alein ben Levi, and he wrote on them the words ben Levi. V'al Shlosha v'shivim Masayim, and then on 273, Chasav Alein Chamisha Shkolim, he wrote 5 Shkolim, and that's how they would determine who would have to pay the 5 Shkolim. Balon v'nasan v'kalfi, mixed them up, he put them in a box. Amar Ledi said to them, Telu Piskechem, take your slips of paper. Mishala biyado ben Levi, whoever took a slip of paper that said ben Levi, Amar Lo, he said to him, Kvar Podacha ben Levi, you've already been redeemed by a Levi. And Mishala biyado chamesha shkolim, whoever had 5 shkolim, Amar Lo, he said to him, Tein pidyoncha v'tzei, you should give your redemption, give that amount of money, and then you can go out. And the Gemara, the Brisa continues, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, B'machan and Ishtayru, when it says in the Pasuk, Vayisharu Shnei Anoshim, that 2 people remained, it means that they remained in the camp. And the Gemara explains, the Brisa explains, B'shah sha'amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe, at the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Esva li shivim ish, gather for me 70 men, Amru Eldad u'Meidad, so Eldad u'Meidad, they said to themselves, Ein anu ru'uyin la'osa gedula, we are not fit for that greatness. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Ho'elu miyatetem atzmechem, since you humbled yourselves, you made yourselves small, Hareini Mosif Gedula al Gedulaschem, I'll make you even greater than you are. Uma Gedula Hosef Lemon, what was the greatness that he added for them? Shanavim Kula Nisnabu Pasku, because all of the other prophets, they prophesied, but they stopped. Vehem Nisnabu Velo Pasku, but they were Neviim, and they did not stop having that Nevuah. Uma Nevuah Nisnabu, and what Nevuah, what did they prophesize? Amru, they said, Moshe Meis Yehoshua Machnes es Yisrael La'aretz, that Moshe Rabbeinu will die, and Yehoshua will bring Klal Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara continues, Abba Chanin Omer Mishum Rabbi Eliezer. Abba Chanin says, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, Al Iske Slav, Hein Misnabim, they were actually prophesying about the Slav, Ali Slav, rise up Slav, and then those Slav, they arrived. And the Gemara continues, Rav Nachman says, Al Iske Gogu Magog, Hayim Misnabim, they were prophesying about Gogu Magog. Shenemar, as it says in the Pasuk, Amar Hashem Elokim Ma'ato Asher Dibarti, Bayom Kadmonim Biad Avdi Nevi Yisrael Hanibim Bayom Mohem Shonim Lahavi Oscho Aleim. And the context of this pasuk, this is a pasuk in Yechezkel talking about Gog u'Magog, and it uses the word Shonim, years. And the Gemara says, Al Tikri Shonim el Shnayim, don't read it as Shonim, read it as Shnayim too. Ve'ezu hein Shnayim Neviim shenisnabu beperak echad nevuah achas. And where do we find 2 prophets that they prophesied at one time, one nevuah? Haveyomer Eldad u'Meidad. What is it referring to? It's referring to Eldad and Meidad. And the Gemara continues, Amar Mar, the master said, Kol ha-Neviim kula nisnabu pasku, all of the other Neviim, they prophesied and then they stopped. V'hei nisnabu v'lo pasku, but they prophesied and they did not stop. And the Gemara says, Menolan de pasku, from where do we know that they stopped? If you're going to say that it's from the pasuk, it says that they prophesied and they did not continue, and that means to say that all of these other prophets, their prophecy stopped. But according to that, Kol Gadol v'lo Yosef, it says that it was a great voice and it did not continue. Hachanami delo Osifu, are you going to say that the voice stopped, it did not continue? That's not what it means. It actually means the opposite in that pasuk. Ela delo pasaku, rather what it means is that that it never stopped, and therefore the same thing over here, vayisnabu v'lo yasafu, would mean to say that they never stopped prophesying. And so the Gemara says, Ella, rather, the source is as follows. Hachaksiv, here it says vayisnabu, that they prophesied. That implies that it was for that time and it stopped. But over there by Eldad Umeidad, ksiv misnabim, it says that they are prophesying adayin misnabim v'holchim. It means that they're continuing to have these nevuas. And the Gemara continues, B'shlama l'man damar Moshe meis. It's good according to the one who says that Eldad and Medad were prophesying that Moshe would die. Hainu d'chsiv, that's what's written in the pasuk, Adoni Moshe kloim, that Yoshua says to Moshe, my master Moshe, imprison them, they should be punished for such a prophecy. Elaman damar hanachtarti, but according to the ones who say the other explanations, whether it's Gog uMagog or with regards to the Slav, my Adoni Moshe kloim, why did Yehoshua say, my master Moshe, you should imprison them? What are they doing wrong? And the Gemara said, it's not proper derech eretz to have a Talmud hamora halacha lifnei rabo, because if they're having this nevuah in proximity to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's like a Talmud, it's like a student who issues a ruling in front of his Rebbe. And the Gemara continues, B'shlam l'man damar hanachtarti, it's good according to the other two explanations, the Slav and Gog uMagog, hainu d'chsiv mi'itein, that's the response of Moshe Rabbeinu, that everybody should have such a prophecy. Elo l'man damar Moshe meis, but according to the one who says that they're prophesying that Moshe will die, meinach havani cholei, is that really something that's good for Moshe? Moshe wants everyone to have such a prophecy. Why would Moshe respond in that manner? And the Gemara says, Lo saimua kameh. The Gemara says that they never finished off the prophecy in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu did not know the contents of the prophecy. He only knew that they were prophesying. And the Gemara says, "My kaloim." What does it mean? Imprison them. What does the pasuk mean when Yehoshua says to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Adoni Moshe kaloim"? Amar lei hatil alei and sarchet tzibur. What it means is he said to him that you should put upon them the burdens and the needs of the community of the tzibur, and through that, when they're responsible for that, v'hein kolin me'alehen, so then they're going to cease on their own. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "Minayin l'haviyot shlosha." How do we know that there's another 3 judges? This is talking about in the small Sanhedrin of 23 judges. So we know that there's at least 10 and 10. Let's say 10 who say innocent and 10 who say guilty, which is a total of 20. And then the Mishnah said that in a situation of guilty, you actually have to have not just a simple majority of one judge, but you actually have to have 2 extra judges who say guilty, and therefore you have a total now of 22 judges, and you can't have an even number of judges on a bezdin, so it is actually 23 judges. But the Gemara says sof, but then at the end, if you're up to 23 judges, l'roa al pishnayim lo mashkachas lo, you'll never mathematically have a situation where you're going to have a guilty verdict and have 2 extra judges saying guilty. Because if you have a total of 23 judges, because you can't have an even number of judges, so if you do the math, it comes out as follows. Let's say, for example, 11 judges say innocent, ushnei masr mechayven, and 12 judges say guilty. Akati chadu, so that's just 1 extra judge. That's not 2 extra judges. And asara mizakin, let's say, for example, you have 10 who say innocent, ushlosha asar mechayven, and 13 who say guilty. Tlasav, then you have 3 extra judges. Essentially, the Gemara is saying, if you have an odd number of judges, you're never going to have a majority with 2 extra judges on that side of guilt. And so the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yavo says, Yata motzi, ela b'mosifin v'divrei hakol. The only way you'll have a situation of 2 judges extra saying guilty is if you add on a judge, and that's according to everyone. Rashi will explain in a moment that in a situation where one of the judges says, I don't know, and you have the judges are even against each other, you add 2 judges, then you essentially do have an even number of judges, and we'll say that you can have a situation of a guilty verdict with 2 extra judges. That's one way to find that. And the other way to find it is Sanhedrin Gedola Vali Rabbi Yehuda Damar Shivim. If you have the great Sanhedrin, which according to Rabbi Yehuda is 70 judges, that's an even number of judges. It is possible to have a majority with 2 extra judges on one side. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rabbi Yavo, and Rabbi Yavo says, B'mosifin, in a case where we add judges, as we just said, Osin Bezin Shakol Lechatchila, then you can have an even number of judges, even Lechatchila. The Gemara says, Pshita, well, isn't that obvious? That's what we said. The Gemara says, no, Mao Detema, because what might you have said? Hai Dekamer Eini Yodei, in the case where you add judges, that's when one of the 23 judges says, I don't know. So you might have thought, Kimandi Isei Dami, that judge is still considered part of the court. V'yamar Milsa Shaminan Lane, if he says something, about the issue will listen to him. And so therefore you really don't have an even number in this situation because you have 23 judges and you're adding 2. You actually have 25 judges. Kamash Malan, so that's what it's teaching us. The Haidakamer Eni Yodea, that the one who says I don't know, which is the reason why you're adding judges, command the lesse dummy. It's like he's not there at all. And so you actually have 22 judges and you're adding 2, which is a total of 24, an even number of judges. V'yamar ta'ima lo shamina le. If that judge who said I don't know now starts to give a reason, we would not listen to him. And Rashi explains, we can come up with a case of an even number of judges in a case where we add judges, and that would be according to everyone. Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah Bahayubodkin and Perak Hayubodkin later on, Achad Asr Mezakin v'Achad Asr Mechayvin v'Echad Omer Eini Odeh. Let's say you have 23 judges on the court, 11 say innocent, 11 say guilty, and one of them says I don't know. The halach is Yosifu Hadayon and Shnayim. We actually add 2 judges. The Hash Tahavale Bezin Shakal, and then it's an even number of judges on the Bezdin. The Eino Yodea command Alessio, as we said in the Gemara, the person who says he doesn't know, he doesn't even count. Upashalu Chavdalit, so you really have a total of 24 judges on that court. Mashkachas Le'al Pishnayim. Then you could have a situation where you have a majority with 2 judges extra on one side. Yud Aleph Mezakin v'Yud Gimel Mechayvin. That can be, let's say you have 11 who say innocent and 13 who say guilty. Uva Sanhedrin Gedola, also on the Great Sanhedrin, Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Zugos Ninu. That's an even number because it's 70 judges. And the Gemara then said, Pshita, isn't it obvious that you're adding 2 judges? It's an even number. Tahachi behed yatznan. That's what it says in the Mishnah. V'kama mosifin, shnayim, you always add 2. V'kevan d'chad amar enu yodeya, havalu bezin shakal. And if one of them is saying, I don't know, so again, it's an even number of judges on the court. The Gemara said, maybe you would think to count that one who says, I don't know. V'yomar time, if he says a reason, ma'ara panim l'chova, ma'ara panim l'zuchus, he shows a reason for guilt, a reason for innocence. Umisham hachim esafkale, he shows the reason why he had a doubt. Maybe he would count as one of the judges on the court, and that's what the Gemara says, he does not count as one of the judges. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Kahana says, Sanhedrin Shiro Kulan Lechova. Let's say you have a Sanhedrin, and all of the judges say the person is guilty. In such a situation, if it's a unanimous guilty verdict, pocher noso, we actually say that the person is potter, we exempt him. My time, what's the reason? Kevan de Gemiri halonas din lemevid lezachusa, because there's a halacha of halonas din, that they can't issue that verdict, they have to wait overnight to issue that verdict, because maybe one of them will be able to find the reason for innocence. Vahani su but if you have a unanimous verdict, so you have no judges who are going to be able to convince the other judges overnight, and therefore, since that's not possible, in such a situation, we say that the person is potter. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yochanan says, Ein moshivin b'Sanhedrin la balei koma, ubalei chochma, ubalei maru, ubalei zikna. When we have people on the Sanhedrin, they have to be people of stature, they have to be people of wisdom, they have to be people of good appearance, they have to be people who are elders, ubalei kshafim, they have to know sorcery, they might judge cases that involve kshafim, v'yodim ba'ayin loshen, and they also have to know all 70 languages. Shalote Sanhedrin shomas mipi ha'metorgman. That way the Sanhedrin will not have to listen through an interpreter. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, Ein moshivin b'Sanhedrin elamishi yodei lataris hasheretz. We only put someone on the Sanhedrin if he is wise enough that he knows how to say that a sheretz is tahor min haTorah, from the Torah. Meaning, even though the Torah says a sheretz is tameh, but this person knows enough that he's able to make an argument that a sheretz is tahor. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav. Rav says, Ani edon v'atarenu. I'm able to make such a judgment. I'm able to put forth such reasoning in order to make a sheretz tahor. And Rashi explains, again, if there's a unanimous verdict of guilt, we say the person is actually potter. Kaven de gemiri de boy halon asdin, since there's a halach of halon asdin, that verdict has to rest overnight, so to speak. Beperak hayubodkin shem lo motzulo zechus yom rishon malin also lamachars. If they didn't find any merit on the first day, they wait till the next day. Shem yimsu lahem time zechus. Maybe they'll find some reason for merit. And then the Gemara said, Balei koma merit has to be people of stature and good appearance that are on the Sanhedrin. Shetei mosun mutelas alabrios. Why is that? That way they can have a certain amount of fear that they put in other people. People see them in that fashion. Ubalei kshafim, they also have to be people who know sorcery. Lahamis mechashvim habotchim bekeshveim lihinotzim midei bezin. Let's say you have sorcerers and they trust in their sorcery. They think they're going to be able to save themselves from the court. Legalos ala mechashvim amasisin umedichin bekeshveim kagon hamitzrim. And so therefore you have to have judges who are experts in this in order to be able to reveal this, so to speak. speak. Mipiyam etorgaman, and they also have to know all the languages so that they don't have to hear through a translator. Kishaboin edi lo azim loid b'fneim lo yitztorchu lahamin militzim b'neim. To have a eid mipiyed, again, you're going to have edim who come who speak other languages, and they're going to testify, and we don't want to have that they have to have an interpreter between them. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Zayin Amid Beis.